Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Don't mind my casual appearance today. I'm having a self-care day today, so the internet will have to deal with my makeup-free face. Regardless of that, I'm going to talk about a trope that I'm very passionate about because I really love it and I love when it's done really well. So I'm going to recommend books that I really feel like are done in a very beautiful way and approach the trope in different ways. The trope is the single mom trope. And because maybe I'm a mother myself, I'm not a single mom, but still knowing what it asks of me as a woman, this job title, knowing how much I need to put into it, how much energy, even finances, and how much sacrifices, and just how much time and love and emotions and thought goes into bringing up this human into the world, and thinking about it having or having to do it all by myself. It just blows my mind that so many women have to do that in their life. And whenever it's depicted in fiction, I am always a bit kind of scared to read whether it's done well, because it really needs to be approached with the respect that these women deserve. And the books that I've picked are ones that I believe are done really well, or at least they've made a very good impression on me as a reader when it comes to the single mom trope. And I think I've picked a couple of books that really deal with different situations when it comes to single moms. So books, sometimes the child is younger, sometimes the child is a teenager, and those are really different types of situations as well. So I think that the mix of books that I'm going to recommend to you is a good one where you can just pick different types of books with this same type of trope, so you can see which one works for you the best. And yeah, without further ado, let me just dive into all of the books that have this trope within them so that you can maybe pick up your next read. The first book I'm going to mention is one that I've mentioned before in other videos in respect to other tropes, but now I'm going to focus on the single mom trope within this book. The book is The Mixtape by Brittainy, and I love this one because I feel that there is a very nice balance between the single mom aspect of the book and how the romance develops. So really the relationship, how it's introduced into the already existing life between mother and child. The book centers on Emery, who is a struggling single mom. She is working at this bar trying to make ends meet, basically. And on one night during her bar shift, she encounters her favorite R&B star walking into the bar, but he is currently, specifically on this evening, at the lowest of his lows because he has recently lost his twin brother and also his singing partner, and he's dealing with just the worst time of his life. And because she knows that something is wrong, specifically on that night, she decides to help him out. And that decision kind of brings an opportunity for her because she helps him out, but that means that she essentially loses her job because she closes down the bar for him. So yeah, he kind of feels bad about what has happened with her losing the job, so he offers her another job instead. So one door closes, another one opens for her, and basically because they're in a relationship where they've now become boss and employee, they kind of first build up a friendship before something turns romantic between them. But in the meantime, we find out what is her situation, how she has come to be in a situation where she is raising a child on her own. Her child, I believe, is maybe 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. So it's the type of situation where we see a lot of her backstory, we see a lot of his backstory, and we see how their stories really meet and become one eventually. And I really, really love that about this book. And I feel like even though the hero at the beginning of the book is really drowning in his own trauma, slowly but surely he's seeing that she also is dealing with a lot of backstory of her own, and he decides to help her out as well. So yeah, I really love this book, and I love how much she is willing to sacrifice for her child. And there is one tidbit that I don't want to spoil for you if you haven't read this book, but knowing in the end how much she has had to sacrifice to be the best mom for her child just makes all the difference, for this book to really be like a 4.5 to 5 star read. So I definitely appreciated this one. I just had to grab the next book to show it to you because I love that I now own a physical copy of it. The book is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I think this was one of my favorite reads of last year, and I'm due for a reread because I really loved it. And this type of story is also my favorite type of story when it comes to single mom tropes, because it has a child who is already a teenager, and the teenager has a really well fleshed out personality that contributes a lot to the story. It contributes a lot to the relationship that the heroine develops with her respective love interest, but also we see a lot of the heroine in how she deals with her having to raise a child who is already almost an adult, and what kind of struggles she has when it comes to setting boundaries, to helping the person develop the most positive types of attitudes in life. I really love this book. I really, really love this book. When it comes to the romance, I'm going to put it down because my hand is going to cramp. When it comes to the romance within this story, you have a second chance romance between Eva and Shane. When they were teenagers, they had a week with a very heavy, emotionally binding experience that they had for that one week. And then after that, they didn't see each other for 15 years, and they have a second chance at a relationship with each other when they meet at this book signing, because both of them are authors. Now, what I love about this book, like I mentioned, is the relationship between the mom and the teenager. I love the romance within the story, but what I also love is the relationship between the mom and her ex, and also the teenager with her father who is not living with them. I love when a relationship, whenever the relationship is over, that the two people who are sharing this child, that they really put the child first and their well-being first. So they make maybe it's sacrifices, maybe it's concessions, maybe it's some kind of compromises, but they try to be not only just civil, but really respect each other and show their child that them not having worked out romantically does not mean that they should not respect each other as people and they should not help each other out. They've shared a beautiful history together. So it should only show whenever they're apart that they still have a good relationship with each other. And this is what I loved about this story, that really we had a very healthy relationship between the woman, her ex, the child, both the parents, and then when the love interest comes in, he contributes to the story. It's not, there is no drama between anyone within the story of, X is jealous of the new guy or something like that. I love this about the story. So this is probably one of my highest rated recommendations within this video. I promise not to talk about all the books in such a lengthy way, because otherwise we're going to be here for an hour. The next book I'm going to mention is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I picked this book because you know that there is a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think that this book really embodies this saying very well, because within this book we have a single mom, Jess, who has her parents and her best friend really helping her out in all the ways possible to raise her child. And I really love that. I feel like if I were to imagine being a single mom, I would love to involve everyone within my immediate social circle to help me raise my child, because obviously I myself may have certain qualities that I can contribute to raising my child, but I would love for anyone else who has other positive attributes. Like, for example, I don't have the best kind of sense of humor. I'm very dry when it comes to my humor. I would love for someone to teach my child, for example, that they can be goofy and they can just act out and act silly, and this is what I imagine when it comes to a single mom having different people contribute to raising their child, really kind of adding more to the child's experience when they grow up. So this is what I loved about this story when it comes to the outside factors of the romance, you know, so when we don't focus on the romance. In this book, we have Jess, who goes to this coffee shop with her best friend to work, and she encounters this guy. He looks gorgeous, but he's always like looking at his phone, never paying any mind to anyone around in the coffee shop. But they strike up a conversation with him, and they find out that he is the head of this company that is going to launch this app that's going to be a dating app that takes DNA samples to match people to find their best match according to their DNA data that they gather. So Jess gets roped into taking a DNA sample by her best friend. So they both go, and she finds out that she's almost 100% match with this guy, with River. So yeah, the romance kicks off from there. But when it comes to the single mom aspect, like I mentioned, I really love that everyone just pitches in a little to help out when it comes to raising her daughter. So yeah, that's the aspect that I love most about this story. The next two stories I'm going to mention have a similar type of device when it comes to the single mom trope. The first one is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, where we have our heroine Naomi, who doesn't know that she has a niece, but her twin sister dumps her niece on her to take care of her, and she basically becomes a single mom and doesn't know what to do because she doesn't know this child at all. And she's already in her teens. She's maybe 11 or 12 years old. They're in this small town, and luckily for her, her niece has a very good relationship with a couple of the people who live in the small town. So everyone, there is a found family aspect within this story, basically. So everyone pitches in to help Naomi out, to make a safe environment and bring up the child that has been dumped on her, essentially. So this is a very interesting story because she really needs to get to know her niece first, and the niece is obviously also very reserved because she doesn't know her aunt as well. And she's like, yeah, my mom has dumped me many times over, and we've been in this situation before, so it's no surprise to me. And because she hasn't had the best role model, she's really cautious when it comes to her aunt. But then it's really up to Naomi to prove herself that she's not like her twin. So yeah, I really love this aspect within the book, and the romance was nice, and there was a lot of banter between all the characters, a lot of humor in it. So yeah, this was a very, very nice read, and I actually have it here somewhere. Yeah, it's here, but I'm not going to take it out of my library. I'm just going to show a picture up here because I'm too lazy to grab it. In the next one, we have another single mom who actually is taking care of her nephews because of a tragedy that occurs in the story, in the beginning of the story. We have Diana, who needs to take care of her two nephews. I think they're below 10 years old, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I read this story, but they are playing baseball in their middle school. So I think that they're below, like they're not teenagers yet. And what happens is we have Diana, who needs to take care of those kids. She buys a house, she brings them to baseball practice, and she has a romance with her next door neighbor of the new house that she buys, and he is very grumpy. She's more of a sunshine within this story. And what I love about the story is that because it's a slow burn, which is very typical for Mariana Zapata. I don't know if I mentioned the book is called Wait for It. Anyway, it's Wait for It by Mariana Zapata, and what is customary for Mariana Zapata books is that they're typically very slow burn romances. So the relationship between the hero and heroine gets developed in a very slow way. And I love that when it comes to a mama bear trying to protect her children from what may happen if she gets into a relationship and the relationship doesn't work out. So she's cautious when it comes to entering a relationship because she doesn't know how that's going to impact the kids. She wants to make the best possible decisions for those kids because they don't have anyone else who can take care of them. So This story is a special story. I think that there are a couple of things that didn't quite make it a 5-star read for me. I think I rated it 4 stars if I'm not mistaken. But like any other Mariana Zapata book, there is just such a beautiful way in which the relationships are depicted. You really feel like the two boys are very attached to their aunt, and their relationship is very beautiful, and they have a really wonderful dog in the story too, which kind of, it really makes you feel like they're a complete family, even though it's just the three of them and the dog. And then the hero in the story basically only completes them even more. So yeah, I really like this one and I definitely recommend it. The next story is by Colleen Hoover. It's Regretting You. And I'm going to tell you that this is probably my second favorite Colleen Hoover book of mine, the first one being All Your Perfects. I love Regretting You because even though I wouldn't say that this is really a romance, I think that really in this book we focus the attention more on the mother-daughter relationship than on the romances in the book. And what I love about this one is really that we find a very realistic depiction of a single mom dealing with a 15 or 16-year-old teenager, a girl, and her really trying to want to prevent her teenage daughter from making the same mistakes that she did, which very often is the case and very often backfires for parents, because whenever you try to prevent your child from making the same mistakes, typically they're going to go about rebelling and wanting to do what you're trying to prevent them to do. And I really found that this book has a very beautiful arc when it comes to how their relationship is approached, so between the mother and the daughter, and how the romantic relationship of the mother contributes to her daughter viewing her in another way. So yeah, this is a very interesting, a very special story. I'm going to be honest, I read it really a while ago, so I now that I think about it, I really want to reread it, and I saw that I have it on audio on Storytel, so I may pick up the audiobook for this to really get myself reacquainted with the story. But I do remember that I really, really love the mother-daughter dynamic within this book, so I definitely recommend it. Next up, we have a book by another favorite author of mine, which is Kennedy Ryan. The book is Long Shot. And this book is one which does deal with a lot of heavy topics, so please look up the trigger warnings for this one because it does involve domestic abuse. When it comes to this story, what comes to mind that sets it out from all the other stories that I've mentioned is really, how does a woman deal with, she's actually in a relationship within this book, so she's not really a single mom at the start of the book. She's in a relationship, but she's in an abusive relationship. And this story is very personal to me because I've dealt with abuse within my immediate circle in my past. And when I think about how does one get out of that situation without harming your child, because whenever you're in such a situation, you really try to consider your child's best interest. But what you need to consider, at least this is my opinion, obviously I'm not an expert on this, but what you need to consider is that if you're in a relationship that is toxic for you and is harming you and is hurtful to you, by extension, it is the same also for your child. So really, I think that we as women are just so focused on protecting our children that sometimes we forget that we need to take care of ourselves first, so that we can be the best versions of ourselves to be able to take care of our children and to show them the best example of being healthy and loving and being in relationships that are an example for them of what they need to create and look for in life. So yeah, this type of story, it's a very much more emotional and heavy type of story. In this book, the child is very young, and basically the heroine is again in an abusive relationship, and she's trying to figure out a way of how to deal with it. At the beginning, she's definitely not ready to get out of it. And the hero within this story is someone who is basically her support system, someone who is there for her, really, for her to try and see that she deserves better and she needs to take care of herself better. So yeah, this one was a very special story, and if you haven't read anything by Kennedy Ryan before, I would definitely recommend maybe starting off with one of her other books. But if you're ready to do like the big dive into deep water, this is definitely one of her most amazing books. The next book I'm going to mention is Until It Fades by Kay Tucker. I love Kay Tucker as well. She's also one of my favorite authors. I just recently read this book for a reading vlog, and in this book, she is a single mom, and she's a single mom in a small town where she, as a teenager, has ruined her reputation because she had an affair with her teacher and she turned him in because her family pressured her into turning him in, and because the teacher has a very high standing within their small town society, she's basically shunned within this small town. And what I love about this story when it comes to the single mom trope is, again, a bit of the found family aspect within the book, because she gets a second chance at um, basically almost at life, because she goes to find a job at the small town diner, and the family that owns the diner really takes her under their wing. And also, one of the girls that works there becomes her best friend, and all of them basically help her out when it comes to raising her child. And that is something that is always going to melt my heart. I've mentioned it before. Whenever we have a found family aspect where people are helping you as a single parent to contribute something positive into your child's life, that's always going to be kind of a soft spot within my heart that I'm always going to appreciate when I encounter it in stories. So yeah, this is definitely something that I loved within Until It Fades. The next story I'm going to mention is one that doesn't resemble any of the other stories that I've mentioned. That's why I included it in this list. The book is called Tattered by Devney Perry. It's the first book within a companion novel series. And this book revolves around a woman who has a one night stand, an amazing one night stand with a guy, but she doesn't take his details, his contact details. So um, she finds out that she's pregnant with his baby, and she doesn't know how to basically reach him. And he turns out to be this billionaire type of guy who lives in a big city, and she lives in this small town where she is managing this summer camp type of facility. I don't know how to call it. And then he comes into her small town, maybe, I don't know how many years later, I think 6 or 7 years later, to invest in this summer camp, and finds out that she is the person who is there, and she has a child who very much resembles him. So yeah, this is the type of story where we have secret baby, but the type of secret baby that is done, I think, well, because I'm not a fan of the secret baby. I don't mind it if it's done well, and in this story I think it's done well. So yeah, it's another type of story that you can definitely dip your toes into if you are in the mood for this type of a story. The last story I'm going to mention is one that I read last year, and I think that I included it because, again, it's a different type of single mom story to the other ones that I've mentioned. In this book, Rachel Out of Office is what it's called, by Christina Hovland. The woman within the book is recently divorced, and she is middle-aged, and she's dealing with how do you get back on your feet when you've known one type of life your whole, then not your whole life, but your whole mature life. Let's say you've been married, you've been dealing with children, and really essentially her husband was almost like one of her children. So she was kind of taking care of everyone, being really the mom within the story, or within her life. And then she is divorced, and now she needs to get back into working, into finding her own self, not being just a mom or a wife, but really who is Rachel. So yeah, this is a different type of story because it's more like a coming of age story, but in your like late 30s to 40s. So yeah, I definitely appreciated it because I found that I related to Rachel a lot, even though I'm not divorced obviously, but I'm in the age group where you're kind of really rediscovering yourself in different ways, because whenever you become a mother, you really focus all your energy onto bringing something into the world, not something, but bringing your child into the world with teaching them all that you know and all the positive things that you want them to take out of life. But then in the process you kind of neglect yourself. So I definitely related to that aspect within the book, and I really really liked it. I gave that one 4 stars, and I definitely recommend it. These were all the books that I wanted to mention today when it comes to the single mom trope. I hope you enjoyed this video, because I definitely enjoy talking about all these books because I've loved all of them. And if you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought about them. And I really do hope that if you haven't read them, that you're going to add them to your TBR. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, if you want to follow my content. And I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care, and bye-bye.